We're going to focus on setting up an AOP project. So for setting up an AOP project, at least in IntelliJ and Eclipse, it's pretty similar. We do have another video super long ago in the playlist, link below the like button, that deals with that. And it's kind of same with this one. We're just going to be going over it. So we go with File, we go New, then we go to a Project, and then from here we want to be in New Project. Now, you might get confused by the fact that there's a really loud bird outside, but also that we have a Maven archetype here, which is not what we want to use. We want to go into New Project. We can call this whatever we want. We can put the location wherever we want, and then we want to make sure our language is Java and our build system is a Maven. Our JDK should be OpenJDK 18, which is going to be this one right here. If not, if there's a newer version available, you could download the JDK. That bird is extremely loud, but I have the 18th one here, and I believe your version has to be over 8 to do this. Then you click Create, wait a good 30 seconds to a minute, and then your entire project will be created. So the main things here are an src folder in our pom.xml. We're going to open our src to our main, to our Java. And then for our project right here, for all these examples, because this is all based off of Skillsoft, it's not my own, it's just what I'm taking from it and learning from it. But we have a org, and I don't think we're touching this. We're going to have a com.loony.com, and from here we want to go into new, we can go into package, and that is how we make this package right here. Inside of this package, we're going to have another package, which is our point cut. So you would make it the same way by making the package inside of here. We also have a main class inside of here as well. Inside of our point cuts, we have an item, and this is another Java class. In our pom.xml, we are going to have some dependencies that we need to import, but we'll get to that in future videos. The way we could import dependencies is basically coding it out, and just like when we import classes, if we hover over something that's not imported, there's a way to use a Maven like import to have it go into our pom.xml file. So we'll address that later. We just have a blank main right now. We have a pom.xml with our like locations. We have our ID, artifact ID, version, and then our properties right here for our Maven. And then we have our item. So this is what we're going to be working with so far that we've set up. We have these variables right here. We're going to create getters and setters for all of them. And then we're also going to have a toString down here. Now we're also going to have a more custom print item details right here, where we have the date formatter. We have the date right here, and then we have a systemout.println where we print the details for this, and we use the string sysout.get format, and we pass in the get item name. We are passing in the date, and then we're also passing in this toString method right here, which we've coded previously for this override. So that's just how we would set up this project, and now we're going to be looking at our AOP. So we need the Spring context, AOP, JWeaver, and that's going to be for our POM. We'll import those later, and that allows us to like read aspects, and it allows us to include the JCompiler for the AspectJ tools. Once this is like done, when we put more in here, there's like going to be a Maven reload button sometimes. We would click that and we could reload all these dependencies in our project so it refreshes. We're now going to be looking at how to configure an aspect. The print items detail method is like a module in our application. We also can call it a core concern. So what if we want to print out a logo, which we have in our aspect config class right here. So I just made this aspect config class. It's going to be inside of our Loonicorn package, but not in the point cut one. So that's inside of here. We have this logo that we're just making, we're printing out, super simple, super easy for now. So what if we want to print this logo before the module for our item print details? This is called cross-cutting. We're going to need to make a new class, so that's our aspect config. And in here, just with this logo and much more through the next videos, we're going to define various aspects of our program. Now we want to use this throughout our program, like it's a logo, we want to use it in multiple places. So what if we want to print it before the print item details? Well, why don't we just call it before? It brings us to the separation of concerns, and this means that everything should be as independent as possible, as core aspect of aspect oriented programming is this. So aspect oriented programming is when we have separate things as individual as possible, and they are just brought together. So that is how that would work. We want print logo to be before print item details without strongly linking the two, right? That's what we've thought so far. And we can accomplish this in a configuration file. So we're going to make a new XML file. It's going to be in resources, application context.xml. So we have here. We're going to go over all of this in a second. Setting this up, we might get some errors, and that's okay, especially when we're doing this first bean right here. A way to resolve these errors is to have this XMLNS AOP. Now I've copied this over from the actual XML file from our previous application. We're using a lot of the same addresses right here. The only one we're changing is this line 4 right here. Instead of having it as a Spring Framework schema context, we want it as a Spring Framework schema AOP. So that's the only difference here. And our XMLNS is an AOP like this. We can code all of this out right here. And this also brings us to our pom.xml. You can see now that I have all these dependencies in here. Remember I said we need Spring Context, Spring AOP, we need Aspect-J Weaver, and Aspect-J Tools. Now we can go actually to a website, and this website is linked below the like button in the description. It's called Maven Repository, and we can search whatever we want inside of here. We can search anything we want, like Aspect-J Tools. If we get something like this, we can come down here, we see our dependencies, we can copy it, and we can do the same thing for like our Spring AOP. So if I were to go into the search bar, type in AOP, we get our Spring AOP, and we can click on a version. Let's do the latest version, and then we're gonna click our dependencies, only the dependencies, copy it, and then paste it inside of here. Remember that this has to be all between these dependencies. The dependency has to be between the dependencies. So again, that'll be in the playlist, bold in the description, link below the like button, probably under the playlist, and that will be there to easily go and bring our dependencies in. Back in our XML file, we want to make a new URL on line 4 to use. We just talked about that. We're also going to want to create two beans. One is for our aspect configuration, and the other is for our item. We can see right here. I just realized that I might have actually taken out the ending part for this, because we do need an ending for our beans. So we'll type in beans, and then we should end this. We just need the one on the right, so we're going to take this out like that. And then I'm also missing the ending for this bean right here for some reason. So we'll type in bean like this. We only need the ending again because we want to end it, and now this is valid once again. So that is how that fix would work if it was not implemented earlier. In the aspect one, which is going to be this bean right here, we set it up so our print logo will execute before any invocation of print item details. Now we can see that we're dealing with print item details first, but that's important. We're actually doing the print logo first because it works around our print item details. So this is where we're going to have our first bean right here, line 11. My point cut aspect is our ID. That's what we are going to be just referencing as. We have our class, which is basically how we are accessing this. Our package is com lunicorn, and then we have the aspect configuration, so that's going to be the aspect config file. Point cut right here means something of primary concern in an application. Another term is joint point. It serves as a point in the program around where we can configure some behavior, which we're going to be doing here. We use a point cut expression, which is like a regular expression, that corresponds to one or more joint points within the application. So we want to design a point cut which will point to print item details, join point within the application, and then get the print logo method and execute it before print item details. So print logo needs to execute before the print item details right here. So we're going to do this between our app config element and this app config right here as well. So we're going to start out with our aspect definition right here. The ID is my advice, and it references my point cut aspect. So it's referring to the bean right here. So we're going to be inside of here basically. There's multiple different kinds of advices. The advice that we're dealing with here is a before advice. A before advice is what is carried out before a join point. The expression is a point cut executor right here. So that's this line. This we have a point cut executor. This tells us the primary point cut references. This tells us the point cut refers to any execution of a method corresponding to a given pattern. So we have our expression is an execution. Again, we're using my point cut expression This is what our bean is, the ID here, it's the same thing. And then inside of our expression, if we mute this, we are going to have an execution. Inside of our execution, we have an asterisk, and the asterisk is basically just getting all of the kind of returns or anything inside of here. And then we're going to have the direct path, which is our package, the item.print item details as well. So we're going to be joining around here. This is our point cut. This is what we were talking about earlier. Now we come to our before. And the before advice is an action to be carried out before a specific join point. So notice how we have this AOP before. We have point cut dash ref. So we have our point cut right here that's referencing this, and it's referencing my point cut expression, which is this one right here. And then we have our method print logo. So this print logo should be printed before our point cut. Now that's going to be it for our aspect right here. Next we're going to look at our bean. And the bean inside of here, we're basically just making a bean. We've done this in previous videos where we have our ID, we have our class where it's located, and we're setting all the property values here. So that's going to be it for our setting up of an AOP project and configuring an aspect. Next, we're going to be looking at running aspect-oriented programs, but that'll be in the playlist linked below the like button.